And now, from the Room 111 studios, it's Hacking Engagement with James Sternovich.
Well, hey there, listener. Welcome back to the Hacking Engagement podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Now, some of you might be thinking, what's up with all the podcasts? Because generally I put one out every month, but I just published this book and I wanted to give you a little taste of some of the ideas that are promoted in the book. And then also just to think about some of the ideas of coming back from this long break and trying to teach again. So I really try to, cross two bridges in this podcast. I want to tell you a little bit about the book, but I want to talk about this idea I have for your first week of school. Now, ready or not, we'll be starting school soon, and I know for some of my listeners, they've already started. My first day is next Wednesday, 8 days from now, August 19th. Many colleges like mine are in session for 3 months. We then adjourn at Thanksgiving time, and then we don't restart till January. It's going to be the longest winter break that I've ever experienced. I have to confess, I'm kind of looking forward to that. I think it's a pretty neat way to teach. But if you're like me, the idea of jumping back in the saddle comes with joy, but a few mixed feelings. I mean, there have been aspects of my life over the last few months which have been positive, and I'll touch on some of those in this episode. Last spring, like everyone else, I taught virtually. This fall, I'll be teaching a blended class. This is going to be a new challenge for me. I'm excited about it. Without a doubt, I'm mostly glad I'm returning next week. But I haven't been physically in front of students for months. And while I'm looking forward to next week, there's a small tinge of Can I still do this? I'm sure I'm not alone in this emotion. My prediction is that the vast majority of us will feel totally at home and thrilled to be back in our natural habitat. This program today might stoke some ideas for that first week with students. I mean, are you going to talk about the long absence from school? Are you going to talk about their experiences with virtual learning last spring? On a typical first week of school, educators often incorporate some type of prompt which challenges students to reflect on their summer vacation. This first week of school ain't going to be typical, baby. And I have a great idea for a prompt for your youngins, and right after the break, I'll lay it on you. Buckle up, man. Y'all going to love this episode. Here's my elevator pitch for my brand new book, Teaching in Magenta. This book provides 100 ways to create a magnificent day in your classroom. Once you start stringing some magenta days together, you and your students will experience profound well-being and deep joy. That's Teaching in Magenta, which is now available on Amazon's virtual shelves. Often in the midst of negative things, catastrophic things, positive things can happen. When I was growing up, my father was a World War II vet, and a lot of my playmates, their dads were in World War II. And I remember I had this one playmate in my neighborhood. And, I grew up in Ohio. People talk like pretty flat in Ohio, but this one kid had like this interesting accent. It was kind of like a British accent or something like this. I recognized this as a little kid, and I went home and I asked my mom and dad, I said, why is John talk weird? And they're like, well, what are you talking about? I said, he says things strange. And they said, oh, that's because he has a slight British accent because his mom is from the UK. And I was like, wow, how'd they meet? And he said, well, it was World War II, and John's father was in Britain, and they developed a relationship, got married, and came home. So here in the midst of the greatest cataclysm of the 20th century, World War II, love bloomed. Hallelujah. So very positive things can happen during bleak times. That's a wonderful, some hook like that is a wonderful way to usher this magnificent, powerful prompt into your lesson. You could ask students to reflect on the past few months. Now be prepared, because some of them may come up with some pretty negative, catastrophic stuff. Maybe they had a grandparent that passed away due to COVID. Maybe they have a parent who lost a job. And then just like some things on a personal level, they lost their track season last spring, which could be I know it would have been traumatic for me. So opportunities could have been taken away from them. They didn't get along with members of their family, and they were locked into this house for months on end. Some pretty negative things can come up. But I want you to take that prompt and challenge them just a little further to take inventory of growth during this bleak time that we've experienced. Now, perhaps you could prime the pump by describing a way or ways that you evolved during this dreadful pandemic. And I can think of 3. I think for some couples, it's been hard to be around each other so much. But I have to say, for my wife and me, it's been good. I mean, I think in many ways we've become closer. We've done a lot more together. We've spent a lot more time together. I enjoy being around her. I hope she enjoys being around me. She's not being interviewed here, but I think she has. She hasn't left me or anything. She hasn't voiced those ideas. So I think it's been very positive in that respect. I've talked about this before on other episodes. Man, I am just like a machine right now working out. I love it. And what I do is I get up in the morning and I take care of it before anything else, because guess what? I'm not in a rush. I get to my schoolwork or whatever I'm doing mid-morning, but the first part of the day belongs to me. And I like to work out, eat a leisurely breakfast, and not be in a hurry. And as a result of that, my intensity level, my effort has gone way up on my workout, and it shows, man. I just feel fantastic. Okay? Relationship with loving wife. My health is improved, and I eat better. And, when you can't go out to restaurants, you have to be creative in the kitchen. As a result of that, my wife and I have made some wonderful stuff. I've really gotten into dried red peppers in everything. What's up with that? They're pretty hot for a lot of people, but I've grown to love them. I mean, use the grill almost every night. I really enjoy my meals. And we put on some music, put a little candlelight going on. Everything is less rushed, which I have thoroughly enjoyed. So those are some positives. I could talk for quite a while on those positives. Try to get your students to look at some of their experiences to find some of those positives, but certainly don't force optimism on your students. If some have experienced nightmares, don't stifle that expression, but encourage optimism. Encourage them to look for some silver linings. Now, on my show notes, and if you have a moment, you need to come look at this picture. I'll tweet it out too. I have this picture of this pretty stark-looking bush. I have out in front of my house these boxwoods. And they were just getting too big. So I thought, I'm really going to prune those suckers. And I went out there with a pair of lopping shears, and, it was ugly. I mean, I really went to town on these poor things. I felt like I may have gone overboard. For a while there, it looked like the Western Front in World War I, and I thought, oh boy, I hope I didn't kill him. Well, guess what? Even though my prune job was horribly traumatic for them, they're coming back. And I took a picture of the little green shoots that are firing off the stems. And this, folks, is going to be my hook. I'm going to put up this picture, or maybe tell the story about, my childhood friend with the British accent. I'm going to do some type of hook before I introduce this prompt. But you got to come look at this picture. I love this picture. And I didn't get it off the internet. I took it. Now, when I was writing my book that just came out, Teaching in Magenta, I dedicated an entire section to optimism. Hallelujah. And I crafted Path 40 in that section for readers experiencing challenges. So I'm going to read that path. It's called Take Inventory, path number 40. Most days, both positive and negative things happen to you. Acknowledging that simple phenomenon is an important step. Unfortunately, negative experiences seem to deliver more impact. It could be a confrontation or a critical comment from a student, a parent, or your principal. Or it could be something more nuanced, such as having high hopes for a lesson that didn't end up engaging your kids. Regardless, I'll wager that many subtle positive things materialize during the day that you didn't fully acknowledge. Today, take stock of a colleague who asks about your family, the student who completes her assignment for the first time in weeks, and the kid who you thought didn't like you that gave you a smile. If you do this regularly, you just might find yourself smiling more often as well. So that's my Path 40. I love Path 40, man. And I wrote Path 40 in 2019, long before I'd heard the word COVID. I had no idea then what 2020 would bring. While the time frame for this path is just a 24-hour window, it could easily be applied to the last few months. Regardless of whether you prompt your students to take inventory of the last few months, embrace the spirit of this path. I knew when I wrote it, and I know now, that challenging days are in the future for all educators. When you have challenges, just like my poor boxwoods that I almost slaughtered, you can return. You can return like a champion, my friends. So how have you grown during this pandemic? If you're willing to share how you've grown, or perhaps how you'll coax students to share, hop over to the Magenta teacher community. There's a link on the show notes, and let us know what you're up to. And hey, good luck tomorrow engaged. Good luck going back into the classroom, whether it's next week, whether you're there already, next month. Good luck going back to the classroom.
Show notes for this episode can be found at jamesalansturnevant.com. If you enjoy Hacking Engagement, please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes.